The 2026 FIFA World Cup is about to be the biggest World Cup ever. Not a little bigger, not a few extra teams. We're talking about 48 national teams competing on the biggest stage in football history. And if you're confused about how that's supposed to work, you're not alone. Because FIFA completely changed the tournament format, added more countries, added more matches, and created a bracket that looks very different from previous World Cups. So in the next few minutes, we'll break down exactly how the 2026 World Cup works, who gets in, how teams advance, and why this tournament could feel completely different from anything we've seen before. Let's start with the biggest change. For nearly 3 decades, the World Cup had 32 teams. That was the format used from 1998 all the way through 2022. But FIFA decided that wasn't enough. For 2026, the tournament expands to 48 teams. That means 16 additional countries will get a chance to play on football's biggest stage. In theory, this gives more nations an opportunity to qualify. In practice, it means the tournament becomes much larger and much more complicated. But here's where it gets interesting. Even though there are 48 teams now, the basic idea remains the same. Teams start in groups. Then, the best teams move on to the knockout rounds. Simple, right? Well, sort of. The 48 teams will be divided into 12 groups. Each group contains 4 teams, and every team plays 3 matches, one against each opponent in their group. If you've watched previous World Cups, this part will feel familiar. Win a match, and you earn 3 points. Draw, and you earn 1 point. Lose, and you earn 0. Nothing new there. But what happens after the group stage is where things get different. Normally, only the top 2 teams in each group would advance. This sounds simple. It isn't. Because there are now 12 groups instead of 8, FIFA needed a way to fit more teams into the knockout stage. So here's the solution they came up with. The top 2 teams from every group automatically qualify. That's 24 teams. Then the 8 best third-place teams also advance. That creates a total of 32 teams moving into the knockout rounds. Yes, you heard that correctly. A team can actually finish 3rd in its group and still survive. You know the type. The team that struggles early, sneaks through, and somehow becomes dangerous later. That's now a real possibility, and it could create some very dramatic final group stage matches.
Now let's talk about the knockout rounds. This is the part most fans love, because every game becomes win or go home. No second chances, no extra group matches. One bad day, and you're packing your bags. The tournament begins with a new round called the Round of 32. This didn't exist in the previous World Cup format. Why? Because there are more teams advancing. After that, it's straightforward. Round of 32, round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinals, third-place match, and finally, the World Cup final. Win and move on. Lose and you're done. Simple. But there's another consequence of expansion. The eventual champion will have to play more matches than before. A team reaching the final could play 8 matches instead of 7. One extra game may not sound like much, but at the highest level of football, that's another 90 minutes of running, tackling, sprinting, and surviving pressure. Now let's talk about qualification. Because if there are more teams in the tournament, somebody has to fill those spots. And that's exactly what's happening. Every continent receives more qualification places than before. Africa gets more spots, Asia gets more spots, North America gets more spots, South America gets more spots. Even Oceania receives an automatic qualification place for the first time. This means fans from more countries will likely see their national teams reach the World Cup. And for smaller football nations, that's a huge deal. A country that had almost no chance before might suddenly find itself playing against the biggest teams on Earth. That's exactly what FIFA hopes will happen. More representation, more stories, more global interest. So what does all of this mean for fans? Well, it means the 2026 World Cup will be bigger than anything we've ever seen. More teams, more matches, more nations, more chances for underdog stories, and probably more chaos. Because whenever you add more teams and more opportunities, surprises tend to follow. Which brings us back to the original question.
Why is everyone talking about the new format? Because this isn't just a larger World Cup. It's practically a different tournament. 48 teams enter, 12 groups battle it out, 32 survive into the knockout stage, and eventually, one nation lifts the trophy. The real question is whether the expansion will create more unforgettable moments
Or just confusion. If you enjoy simple football explanations, subscribe so you understand the 2026 World Cup right now.